Chapter 587 to 590. Smash. Danzo struck his crutch on the ground to break the silence in the room, then asked Homusubi with a frowned expression, "You said that I have an advantage in this aspect. Is it because my body already has yin and yang chakra from the Sharingan and the Hashirama cells that I have implanted, and I wouldn't have to worry about these two chakra natures?" Homusubi nodded. Sort of. Your body already has two Kekkei Genkai that are giving you two of the 7 chakra natures, that being yin and yang chakra natures, which are the most important of all. So what you have to focus on is obtaining the other 5 basic chakra natures. Danzo was disappointed for a moment, the reason being he realized that he won't be able to devour Mika's Kekkei Genkai, which is based on yang chakra nature transformation. But after thinking about it a little, he no longer cared whether he would be able to devour her Kekkei Genkai or not. After all, he would still have 7 other Kekkei Genkai, including both Sharingan and the Mokuton. Upon reaching such a conclusion, his stretched brows loosened, and his tone became brisk as well as he said, "If that's the case, what else is there to worry about?" However, before Danzo could become so happy, Homusubi poured cold water. "It's not that simple." And while shaking her head, she explained as she pointed at Danzo's right arm. "I have said it before. Your situation is quite complicated. Although you have implanted Hashirama cells and several 3-tomo Sharingan, the method and techniques of implantation are too poor and crude, and they have left behind a lot of hidden dangers in your body. The 2 forces of Sharingan and Hashirama cells, that is, yin chakra and yang chakra, are barely in an equilibrium state inside your body. If either of them is consumed beyond a certain limit, then you will lose control of both of them, and there would be life-threatening consequences. I think you should know this better than me, so you should understand what I am trying to imply here." Due to the limitations of technological advancement at that time, Danzo's transplantation technique is the most unsophisticated and the most unstable. The right arm, implanted with several 3-tomo Sharingan that he got transplanted in his body, does not even belong to him, but to a kid named Shin, who was part of the route until a few months ago and has gone missing some time after the Tri-Alliance's raid on a Katsuki organization at Amagakure. Regardless of what that kid is doing now, the focus here is that the way the transplantation of Hashirama cells has been done in his arm is also very rough. In fact, the way Shin's right hand is transplanted into Danzo's body can also be considered an attempt towards organ fusion. And when that arm implanted with several 3-tomo Sharingan and Hashirama cells was transplanted into Danzo's body, it was just an organ-level transplantation, not even the cellular-level transplantation, much less genetic level. Regardless, all Homusubi had to say for it is that it is the result of a lack of capable subordinates on Danzo's side. And she is indeed very correct. If Danzo had capable subordinates, then they would have at least attempted cellular-level fusion, even if genetic level seemed beyond their pay grade. Facts have proven that the genetic-level fusion is the most thorough of all types. Although the rate of failure is very high in the case of genetic level, once successful, genetic-level fusion provides the most stability. Hyuga Kuroto and all his clones are the best examples. In the case of Kuroto, once he merged all the recessive genes of the Hyuga clan and managed to successfully activate all the 33 gene sequences and then awakened the Tenseigan, there was no phenomenon of rejection or runaway. Similarly, for the clones, once Kuroto manages to successfully fuse the genes, the other steps become rather easy, and there are very few cases of rejection. This genetic fusion is indeed the best. Even cellular-level fusion is much better compared to the organ level because after the fusion is successful, it will also tend to be stable. Hashirama cell transplantation in Madara and Obito are very good examples. And finally comes the organ-level fusion, which is the most inferior and also the most stable. Even if Danzo succeeded using this method, the state of his body is in extreme danger due to the runaway of Hashirama cells, if the balance of yin chakra plummets. This was clearly seen in the battle between Danzo and Uchiha Sasuke in the canon. After he had consumed a lot of yin chakra due to repeated use of Izanagi, the balance between yin and yang chakra was disrupted, and immediately after that, the Hashirama cells in his hands ran out of his control. The same situation can arise during the Kekkei Genkai absorption ritual. If Hashirama cells are not controlled, then they will definitely run out of control. And if Hashirama cells run out of control, then rather than Danzo becoming a perfect shinobi with 7 Kekkei Genkai, he will become a humongous tree. And since Homusubi did not want that to happen, she gave a true evaluation of Danzo's state. But of course, what Homusubi stated might have been the truth. It wasn't pleasant to everyone's ears. When Danzo heard Homusubi's unceremonious evaluation, he wasn't very happy. "How dare you!" At the same time, because of Homusubi's frankness in evaluating his state deep down in his heart, Danzo developed a little trust in Homusubi and was willing to believe in her. Obviously, Homusubi didn't know what the old guy Danzo was thinking, and without any regard for his irritated expression, she spoke indifferently. "Considering that you have cells of many different people in your body, especially the cells of Senju Hashiramas, you should select the other 5 Kekkei Genkai in such a manner that all the 7 chakra natures will be in a balanced state. Make note that Hashirama cells also gives you some extent of earth and water chakra nature." For Shimura Danzo's Kekkei Genkai absorption ritual, Homusubi has been quite honest and has provided all the help necessary. This is done in order to make sure that Danzo gets as close to success as possible. As said before, Danzo has all the things necessary to be a perfect pawn. He has manpower at his disposal, he has enough financial power. Most of all, he yearns for power and is bold enough to take even the most drastic of steps for the sake of so-called dreams. A second pawn like Danzo will be hard to come by in the future, and Kuroto wants to exploit Danzo to the maximum to explore the path ahead in order to smoothen his journey into achieving Kekimora in the future. While Danzo was pondering over Homusubi's words, Orochimaru also recovered from his thoughts and silently observed the situation. After keenly observing everything that Homusubi has said up to now, Orochimaru was able to guess some of her thoughts. According to what he has guessed, Amatsukami has the same idea as him. They intend to use Shimura Danzo as a lab rat, guinea pig, to probably test something. After understanding this, Orochimaru thought a little and said to Danzo, "Danzo-sama, I have a suggestion, and this might further increase the success rate." Both Homusubi and Danzo were curious and looked at Orochimaru with quizzical expressions, and Danzo questioned, "What suggestion?" As Homusubi stated, the technique used to transplant that right arm in your body is very poor, and it will certainly affect the future outcome of the ritual. If you allow me, I can do a comprehensive inspection and transformation of your entire body, such that the transplantation will become more stable, and your body will also be able to undergo ritual safely, said Orochimaru. When it comes to body modification and body transformation, Orochimaru can be said to be standing at the pinnacle of the current shinobi world, and even Kuroto, who is highly advanced in biotechnology, cannot be compared to him. Take Orochimaru as an example. This guy has trodden the path of body modification and transformation to such a level that he can't even be considered a human anymore. His true form is that of a giant white snake made up of many smaller snakes. Therefore, when he proposed body modification for Danzo, both Homusubi and Danzo were taken aback and had to consider it for a moment. It's just that Orochimaru's every word gives off a conspiracy vibe, so they were not sure whether to accept his proposal or not. Homusubi in particular stretched her brows and stared at Orochimaru fiercely. Her eyes were clearly stating, Orochimaru, how can you be so blatant in treating Shimura Danzo as a lab rat? Obviously, Orochimaru understood what Homusubi was trying to say. He chuckled lightly and blinked as if saying, "Aren't you the same? And don't worry, even if Danzo realizes that we are treating him as a lab rat, he won't refuse." And while Homusubi and Orochimaru were talking with their eyes, Danzo looked at the two of them with a gloomy face. But he chose to remain silent and didn't say anything, which was exactly as Orochimaru had expected. Although Danzo may not have a clear idea of what Orochimaru and Homusubi are planning, he does know that they intend to do something. But even if he knows this, Danzo doesn't care. What he desires is power. So long as he can get the level of power he wants, he doesn't mind playing in the palms of Homusubi and Orochimaru for a while. What's more, who is using whom to achieve their purpose cannot be decided until the final card is played. As long as he is the last one standing among the three, he will be the ultimate winner who used both Amatsukami and Orochimaru to achieve his purpose. After getting a detailed explanation of everything, Danzo understood a lot of things. As such, he no longer tried to be so secretive in this regard and revealed the names of some of the Keki Genkai that he would like to absorb using the Chimera Jutsu. Some of the Keki Genkai that he prefers, other than Mika's, are Dark Release and Swift Release. Both Dark Release and Swift Release were also preferred by Hiruko, and both of them truly are very useful to Keki Genkai. Once someone has Dark Release, they will become immune to most of the ninjutsu as they gain the ability to absorb chakra from any ninjutsu as long as its form isn't too complex for them. And with Swift Release, the person in question will also gain the ability to dodge physical attacks. Thus, the chances of getting physical damage will also decrease. Having just one of them may not prove to be so effective, but if someone has both of them at the same time, the user's survival ability will definitely improve by several times. Hiruko himself was the best example. After Dark Release and Swift Release, the next Keki Genkai that Danzo proposed was somewhat unexpected, which surprised both Homusubi and Orochimaru. And the Keki Genkai is Crystal Release. Crystal Release is a very rare Keki Genkai in the shinobi world, and truthfully speaking, it is a very powerful Keki Genkai. Crystal Release grants its user the ability to summon and freely manipulate crystal constructs in a number of ways, such as crushing walls or unique snowflake-patterned shuriken. The user can even ride their crystal constructs and freely fly in the air. However, the deadliest aspect of Crystal Release is that it can turn any matter that has a physical state into pink, jade green, red, or blue-colored crystals, from physical material to moisture in the air, allowing the user to turn almost anything into their weapon. This is not just limited to pre-existing things. The user of Crystal Release is also capable of turning other ninjutsu useless against him by turning ninjutsu itself into crystals. And as if that's not enough already, when used on living creatures, targets can be crystallized down to the cellular level, imprisoning them so long as the crystals are in place and shattering them if the crystals are struck, killing them. So it is not wrong to say that not only Crystal Release has both offensive and defensive capabilities, but it also grants its user area of control ability and some extent of espionage abilities. Unexpectedly, Danzo chose Crystal Release. This is surprising, thought Homusubi, as she was really impressed by such a choice of Danzo. On the other side, Orochimaru had his eyes narrowed. I did not expect that Danzo would choose Crystal Release. In regards to the true extent of the abilities that the Keki Genkai Crystal Release grants its user, Orochimaru has the most knowledge of the three. After all, one of his chief subordinates named Guren uses this Keki Genkai. At this time, Danzo said, among the four, no three Keki Genkai that I have selected so far other than Sharingan and Wood Release. Dark Release primarily represents Water Chakra nature, Swift Release primarily represents Wind Chakra nature, and finally, Crystal Release primarily represents Earth Chakra nature. for the fire chakra nature and the lightning chakra nature. I have yet to decide. Do the two of you have any suggestions? Homusubi shrugged. It's for you to decide in the end. Anyway, but if I have to say, then Storm Release is the best Keki Genkai for the lightning chakra nature. The true potential of Storm Release was shown by Uchiha Madara with just a single jutsu of his, Sage Art Storm Release Light Fang, in which he infused Storm Release chakra with Senjutsu chakra to fire a sharp, thin stream of light from his mouth. Sage Art Storm Release Light Fang, used by Uchiha Madara, was powerful enough to cut clean through a truth-seeking ball. Now we can make the argument that it was Uchiha Madara who made that jutsu such unbelievably strong and unconventional, and it's a valid argument, but it still shows just high the potential of Storm Release is. Moreover, Danzo might also be to use Storm Release in conjunction with Crystal Release. So Homusubi's point is valid, and Danzo did take it into consideration. At this time, Orochimaru also put forward his view: since you have opted for Crystal Release and Swift Release, then Boil Release will definitely complement both of them quite well. Using Crystal Release, Danzo will be able to create invisible confined spaces, and using the corrosive vapors of Boil Release, he will be capable of instantly dissolving his enemies. And if Danzo masters Boil Release to a higher level, then he will be able to use this Keki Genkai to heat his chakra to the boiling point similar to the Jinchuriki of Gobi. The steam that will emanate from his body will be capable of melting the surroundings and propelling him in different directions. If the extreme speed of Swift Release and the extreme insight of Sharingan are used in conjunction with the propelling and melting abilities of Boil Release, taijutsu battles against Danzo would result in instant death. Therefore, Boil Release is indeed a very good choice. Danzo deeply thought about the various aspects of the two Keke Genkai proposed by Homusubi and Orochimaru, and then nodded in satisfaction. Yes, Storm Release and Boil Release are indeed the best choices. Both Homusubi and Orochimaru nodded and noted down the names of all the 7 Keke Genkai that are going to be absorbed by Danzo. The 7 Keke Genkai are Wood Release, Sharingan, Dark Release, Swift Release, Crystal Release, Storm Release, and finally, Boil Release. While writing, Orochimaru suddenly thought of something and said doubtfully, with the combination of these 7 Keke Genkai, the concentration of water chakra nature is a little too high and fire chakra nature is quite less. So there might be problems during the ritual. Among the 7 Keke Genkai selected by Danzo, Wood Release, Storm Release, and Boil Release uses water chakra nature, and Dark Release itself is primarily a water chakra nature-based Keke Genkai. So, the ratio of water chakra nature is a little too high, while the ratio of fire chakra nature is quite less, as it is only visible in Boil Release and Crystal Release. This difference in ratio can indeed disrupt the balance. Thinking so, Danzo questioned with a frowned expression, I am quite satisfied with these 7 Keki Genkai. Do we really have to change them? Is there no other way to balance this imbalanced ratio? Homusubi pondered for a while, then suggested, if you are satisfied, then we will go with these 7 Keki Genkai. For the imbalanced ratio of the 7 chakra nature, we will try to balance them using the external environmental factors. That is, using the power of nature. I suggest using a volcano as a location to carry out the absorption ritual. This way, fire chakra will get a boost and suppress the excessive water chakra nature. Orochimaru nodded and added, yes, this should work. And we can also choose a sacrifice whose dark release is weaker to further weaken the water chakra nature. Maybe use a young child who has just awakened the dark release and doesn't have very good mastery over it. Homusubi nodded. Yes, These two approaches should solve the imbalance in the ratio of the 7 chakra natures. After reaching such a conclusion, all the details were finalized and the meeting was concluded. At the same time, Orochimaru's base, Naruto, who had just completed chakra control training for the day, took the advantage of the free time and asked a question from Kabuto, who was working on something not too far away from him. "Kabuto ni-chan, why did Orochimaru-sensei ignore me? What did I do wrong that made him angry?" Naruto may seem carefree and dumb on the surface, but because of always being ignored and alienated by the villagers, Naruto is very sensitive towards others' attitudes towards him. When Orochimaru completely ignored him a few days ago, was able to Naruto accurately feel Orochimaru's attitude, but Naruto is not able to figure out what did he do wrong that made Orochimaru feel as such. Kabuto didn't know how to answer Naruto, and he felt a little troubled by such a question. After thinking a little, he decided to speak half-truth, half-lie. "Orochimaru-sama is not angry with you, Naruto-kun. He is just stricter and has higher requirements. You are not yet at that level, so—" Naruto lowered his head and questioned lightly. Did I disappoint him?" Kabuto had no answer. He chose to remain silent and sighed silently. He knows Orochimaru very well, and it is exactly as Naruto said. Orochimaru was indeed disappointed, because Naruto is the son of Yondaime and the previous Jinchuriki of Kyuubi. The expectations placed on him were too high. This is naturally unavoidable after all. Konoha's Yellow Flash and Red Hot-Blooded Habanero were geniuses in their own right. Yet Naruto is not a genius. Let alone genius, he seems rather dumb on the surface. So, he didn't meet Orochimaru's expectations, and Orochimaru didn't find much worth in training Naruto. In fact, the responsibility of training basics Naruto that has been given to Kabuto is just one last test. If Naruto can master the basics under the careful teaching of Kabuto and show his talent, then Orochimaru might reconsider. Otherwise, it can be considered that Orochimaru has pretty much given up on Naruto. This is Orochimaru, a shinobi who has taken coldness in his instincts. He won't do a thing that is not beneficial to him. Over the years since Orochimaru left Konoha, he has gathered and trained countless orphans. Among them, there were very few whom Orochimaru found to be interesting. Strictly speaking, Kimimaro is the only one. Haku, Guren, Tenzo, Jugo, and the others, regardless of the talent they showed, were only meant to be tools, and were not given any more value than that. As the two sat, silently. Suddenly the sound of the hissing of snakes was heard in the cave. Hiss, 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 hiss. Kabuto frowned, and after reaching out to one of them, he received the message. As soon as he did, Kabuto's brows wrinkled in a deep frown, and while pushing his glasses on the bridge of his nose, Kabuto muttered, "We have intruders here?" He weaved the hand signs, and after sensing a little, he was able to perceive 6 powerful chakra reactions rapidly approaching this cave. Damn! That is the Mist, unit of the Akatsuki organization. I didn't expect that they will be able to find us even here. After realizing the identity of the intruders, Kabuto thought about what to do. Obviously, the idea of fighting them was rejected without even thinking, because Kabuto knows that he won't be able to do anything facing 6 of them at the same time. Then he thought about the possibility of escaping. If it was just me, I could have managed somehow. But with Naruto-kun and Hinata-sama, we will be caught if we use the escape routes. Understanding that all the other options are no longer usable, Kabuto took out a scroll, and while looking at it, he had only one thought in his mind. Now, there is only one thing I can do. Drip, drip, drip. The sound of water droplets falling on the stalagmites resounded in the dark cave that was filled with white fog. When Naruto tried to look around, All he saw was mist and fog that was getting heavier and heavier, making it more and more difficult to see anything as they walked deeper into the cave. As the group passed through the giant stalagmites and stalactites that were mostly not visible because of being covered in fog, Hinata tightly clutched the sleeve of Naruto's jacket, and her immature face was filled with nervousness and fear that she might separate from the others and be left behind in this scary place. Obviously, Naruto felt Hinata's nervousness. He turned around and said with a bright smile, "Don't worry, Hinata. I will protect you." "Thank you, Naruto-kun." Hinata was moved and nodded heavily with deep blush. Following the small episode, the group of three kept walking forward. And after a long time, when Naruto could no longer curb his boisterous and exuberant nature, he finally decided to take a step forward and curiously asked Kabuto who was walking in the front and leading the way. "Kabuto-ni-chan, where are we going?" Kabuto looked back and said, "We are going to a place where we can be safe from the enemy intruders." After receiving Kabuto's reply, Naruto nodded slightly, and the group of three continued to walk. Having understood that he didn't have any chance of surviving if he were to fight the mist squad of Akatsuki, Kabuto directly dispelled the idea of frontal confrontation with them, and he came to these deep caves together with Naruto and Hinata in order to avoid being tracked by them. This is not an ordinary place, so Kabuto is certain that they will not be able to find him, Naruto and Hinata, here. Although many people often venture here, only those who really desire power can pass through. And because this area is covered in fog at all times, as such, this is also a place that the three of them can use to take refugees for a short while. Kabuto has always been very interested in this place, but without Orochimaru's permission, he did not dare to rashly visit this place as he knew how dangerous this place is. Because the members of the Akatsuki organization had almost tracked them, and since Orochimaru is not at base, so this time Kabuto did not have any other option but to venture here together with Naruto and Hinata. Before long, the fog in the surroundings started to become denser and denser, and soon reached the point that neither of the three people was able to see even a single step ahead. Even Hinata, who had activated her Byakugan, was no exception. The fog was rich in natural energy, and that natural energy was hindering the Byakugan's penetrative abilities. As such, Hinata, similar to Naruto, had lost her sense of direction. By now, even Naruto, no matter how thick his nerves are, was also a little nervous, and just like Hinata had grabbed the cuff of his sleeve, he too had subconsciously grabbed the cuff of Kabuto's kimono and asked nervously, "Kabuto, Kabuto-ni-chan, how much longer will it take?" Kabuto replied with a calm smile, "We will be there soon enough." Naruto murmured, "You have been saying the very same thing for so long. But we haven't arrived yet, you know." Kabuto remained silent as he was thinking about Orochimaru's words. Only those who are willing to sacrifice anything for the sake of power can find that place. Kabuto then glanced at Naruto from the corner of his eyes, and suddenly a realization dawned upon him. It's possible that I am not that desperate for power. That's why I am unable to find it. Perhaps Naruto, who ardently desires power, can lead us there. Thinking so, Kabuto constricted his eyes and said to Naruto, "Naruto-kun, do you know why you were unable to use clone jutsu or any other jutsu for that matter when Orochimaru-sama was trying to teach a few days ago?" Naruto has also been worried about this and hurriedly inquired, "Why?" "Remember when I told you about the spirit of the Kyuubi? You see, that fox is inside you, and its chakra is mixing up with your chakra, thus making it difficult for you to control chakra. This is why you are unable to use clone jutsu," answered Kabuto. Obviously, Kabuto, who is also a Jonin-level shinobi, also saw the reason why Naruto is unable to master a basic clone jutsu. The reason is the small gap in the 8 trigram seal that seals Kyuubi inside Naruto. Because of that gap, Kyuubi's chakra is leaking out and mixing with Naruto's chakra, making it difficult for him to use his own chakra. Hearing this truth, Naruto's expression dropped, and he questioned with a sad expression, "Does that mean I will never be able to learn clone jutsu?" Kabuto remained silent for a while, then said slowly, "I can't be certain about that. But maybe there is still an option that you might be able to use to perform ninjutsu." Naruto's expression quickly cheered up and he asked hurriedly, "Huh? There is still another way? Are you telling the truth, Kabuto-ni-chan?" Kabuto pushed his glasses on the bridge of his nose and answered, "You see, Naruto-kun, the chakra that we use is the conventional form used by most of the shinobi to perform ninjutsu. But it's not the only method. Other than using the inner chakra we extract, there is one more method. Perhaps you can learn it. There is another method? What is it, Kabuto-ni-chan? Quickly tell me," Naruto asked impatiently. A smile appeared on Kabuto's lips as he saw Naruto's eagerness, and he answered, "It's senjutsu." "Senjutsu? What's senjutsu?" Naruto was taken aback, because this is the first time he has heard such a term, and he didn't know what senjutsu mean. Even when he was in the village, he has never heard anyone talk about senjutsu before. Not even Sasuke, who is generally informed about most things and is the best source of knowledge and information for Naruto, also never said anything about senjutsu. As such, Naruto did not understand what is senjutsu, and he asked, "What is senjutsu? Is it tasty? If I eat it, will it help me learn clone jutsu?" Kabuto chuckled, and while shaking his head, he said, "I don't think you are supposed to eat senjutsu. Anyway, senjutsu, as far as I know, is a unique style in which senjutsu users, use the energy present in the environment rather than the energy in their body to perform ninjutsu. If you master senjutsu, not only will you be able to use clone jutsu, but I can guarantee that you will become an exceptional shinobi. Even achieving your dream, becoming Konoha's Hokage, won't be impossible." After listening to Kabuto's words, Naruto suddenly imagined what would happen if he were to master senjutsu. After mastering senjutsu, he returns to Konoha gloriously, and he will be appointed the next Hokage. Sasuke would respect him. All the adults in the village will happily greet him and praise him for his talent. All the children in the village will come to play with him, and no one will ignore him. The more Naruto thought about it, the more he felt excited, and the more he longed for senjutsu. He didn't even realize it when saliva started to drip from the corner of his mouth. He. Senjutsu. I want senjutsu! After imagining all sorts of good things, Naruto quickly recovered his mind and said to Kabuto, "Kabuto-ni-chan, please teach me senjutsu!" Kabuto shook his head helplessly. "I am sorry. I can't teach you senjutsu. I don't know how to use it." The current Kabuto hasn't lost the meaning of life. Therefore, although he is fascinated by senjutsu and natural energy, he isn't willing to take such a big risk. So obviously, Kabuto has not attempted to learn or master senjutsu. Huh? Naruto was taken aback and quickly asked, "Then can Orochimaru-sensei teach me senjutsu?" "Orochimaru-sama does have a lot of knowledge of senjutsu," said Kabuto. Then, while shaking his head, he added, "But even Orochimaru-sama too won't be able to teach you senjutsu because even he hasn't been able to truly master it." Because of intensive research on Jugo, Orochimaru has a very deep knowledge of natural energy and senjutsu, but because he uses living corpse reincarnation, so Orochimaru's body and soul are no longer suitable for learning senjutsu. Additionally, there are also several other dangers associated with senjutsu training, such as permanently becoming stone or losing your mind, etc., so Orochimaru hasn't been able to make up his mind whether he should really learn senjutsu or not. Naruto was taken aback. Even a shinobi as powerful as Orochimaru-sensei hasn't mastered senjutsu, and was also disappointed. And if even Orochimaru-sensei can't teach me, then who can teach me? Kabuto said, "In this shinobi world, there have been very few shinobi up until now who have been able to truly master senjutsu, and I don't know if they will be willing to guide you," said Kabuto, much to the disappointment of Naruto. Then Kabuto looked deeply at Naruto's expression and added, "But you needn't be disappointed, because I know the place where you can learn senjutsu." "Where?" Naruto's eyes regained their light, and he asked with a yearning tone. Obviously, Naruto now really wants to learn this senjutsu thing. Just as Kabuto was about to reply to Naruto, he came to an abrupt stop and his eyes widened in shock and disbelief as he looked at the sight before him. The sudden stop of Kabuto was unexpected for Naruto and Hinata. As a result, the two of them bumped into him and fell backwards on their butts. Ouch! After quickly getting up, Naruto rubbed Bit butt and complained, "Kabuto-ni-chan, why did you stop so suddenly?" Kabuto stared at the door in front of him and muttered unexpectedly, "Unexpectedly? We arrived here without your help, Naruto-kun." "Huh? What do you mean, Kabuto-ni-chan?" muttered Naruto in confusion. Then he poked his head out and looked at the simple yet majestic cave door in front of him and murmured, "What place is this?" Hinata, who stood next to Naruto, recognized the kanji characters written on the cave door and said, "Ryuchi Cave." "Ryuchi Cave?" Naruto tilted his head in confusion. "Hinata, do you know what is inside the Ryuchi Cave?" "No." "Naruto-kun." Hinata shook her head. Kabuto smiled strangely and answered Naruto's question. "Ryuchi Cave is one of the 3 holy lands where you can learn senjutsu." Naruto was taken aback. "Huh? Are you serious, Kabuto-ni-chan? I can learn senjutsu here. Do the people living here really teach senjutsu? Will they teach me?" Kabuto shrugged. "I can't say for sure," and added, "Also, be careful. The beings that live here cannot be considered people. Be careful. The beings that live here cannot be considered people." Naruto held both of his hands behind his back and muttered, "Kabuto-ni-chan, now you are just scaring us. This Ryuchi Cave obviously looks like a house. Even if it is located in such an isolated place, it is a house nonetheless. And who else will live in a house other than humans?" Kabuto smiled slightly, and without trying to explain anything, he went straight towards the gate of the Ryuchi Cave. Both Naruto and Hinata closely followed behind Kabuto. And because Naruto kept asking about one thing or the other, as a result of which Kabuto's nervousness was eased a lot. That's right, Kabuto is highly nervous at this time, and his heart is not at all as calm as it may seem on the surface. It was at the moment when he saw the kanji characters making up Ryuchido that the nervousness in his heart even surpassed Hinata and Naruto. Because, unlike the 2 ignorant kids, Kabuto knows what this place truly is. It's the legendary Ryuchi Cave, one of the 3 big unexplored regions in the shinobi world, and one of the only 3 known places in the shinobi world where one can get formal training in Senin mode. But that's only the surface of Ryuchi Cave and what's known to the outside world. The true depths of this place are a big mystery, and Kabuto knows next to nothing about it. However, there is one thing Kabuto understands very well, and it is the fact that even Orochimaru doesn't dare to casually set foot at this place. Therefore, Kabuto was highly vigilant as he took further steps. Stepping on the broad steps, the 3 of them walked step by step towards the gate of the Ryuchi Cave. Compared to the towering gate, Kabuto, Naruto, and Hinata were like ants. As he was passing through the gate, Naruto couldn't help but open his mouth with an astounded expression. "What a giant door!" Hinata was also surprised, even if she is the supposed heiress of the Hyuga clan. Hinata has never once seen such a magnificent entrance. After passing through the giant gate, which for some reason was open, the three of them walked through a long passage, climbed hundreds of stairs, and finally came across something that looked like a stone bed. On the stone bed lay an old woman dressed in a white robe. She glanced at the three people one by one. After a momentary glance at Kabuto, the old woman shifted her gaze to young Hinata and looked at her with a slight smile. She finally glanced in the direction of Naruto and said, "Well, we have some odd guests here. A lost person and two children?" Kabuto took a step forward, and while bowing respectfully to the old woman, he asked, "Are you the White Snake Sage?" The old woman on the stone bed squinted her eyes slightly and nodded. "Uh-huh." As soon as she nodded, Kabuto showed her the small white snake. "This snake was given to me by Orochimaru-sama." "I see." White Snake Sage nodded slightly, then questioned, "And I wonder why the three of you are here." At this time, Naruto directly approached the White Snake Sage, and while deeply staring at her, he asked, "Oba-chan, are you a senin? Can you teach me senjutsu?" White Snake Sage squinted at Naruto and said with a strange smile, "If you wish to learn senjutsu, then you must first pass one of my tests." Before Naruto could agree, his mouth was hurriedly covered, and he was pulled back by Kabuto. The White Snake Sage in front of them looks like a kind old woman who is harmless to children. But Kabuto knew her true face very well. In reality, this old woman is a millennium-old monster who has mastered senjutsu and has been ruling over the snakes of the Ryuchi Cave for several centuries. So she is definitely not someone to whom one can be disrespectful. So while keeping Naruto silent, Kabuto apologized for the kid's rude behavior and then politely asked, "To learn senjutsu, do we need to pass some sort of test? What kind of test is it? And what are the contents of the test?" The White Snake Sage didn't care about Kabuto's cautiousness. She kept looking at Naruto and answered, "In the depths of the Ryuchi Cave, a giant snake named Garaga resides. He has an aggressive temper and is prone to his violent outbursts are a nuisance for me. So long as you bring me Garaga's reverse scale and tone down his temper, you will pass the test and you will be taught senjutsu." Naruto immediately cheered in excitement. "I just have to bring the reverse scale of a snake? It doesn't sound too difficult." "Don't be an idiot, Naruto!" Kabuto scolded the blonde-haired kid with tick marks on his forehead, and then said to White Snake Sage, "If this snake named Garaga can be a nuisance even to the legendary White Snake Sage, I am afraid there is hardly anything we can do about him. Isn't there something else we can do to pass the test?" "Ha ha ha ha." The old lady chuckled lightly, then shook her head. "This is the only test I have for you people. If either of you wishes to learn senjutsu from the Ryuchi Cave, then that person must first pass this test." Kabuto nodded with a troubled expression. White Snake Sage has already stated the content of the test. Even if he doesn't like the content of the test, Kabuto doesn't have the guts to negotiate or bargain with her. Before stepping inside the Ryuchi Cave, Kabuto had expected that the learning process of senjutsu would be that easy and smooth. But only now did he understand how difficult it is. Being Orochimaru's subordinate, Kabuto knows Manda, who is considered one of the strongest snakes in the entire shinobi world. And if this Garaga is troublesome enough to even make the White Snake Sage feel a headache, then his strength is definitely not weaker than Manda. To tone down a snake on the level of Manda? This is not something they can manage with their strength. Kabuto understands that if they wish to complete the trial, then they would at least require strength on the level of someone like Orochimaru. Otherwise, it would mean straight death. And he has no early death wish. But at the same time, Kabuto also doesn't know if he will get another chance to learn senjutsu. Therefore, he was hesitating a little. While Kabuto was weighing whether to accept the test of White Snake Sage, Naruto had already asked the direction of Garaga's lair and was on his way there in a swaggering manner. How powerful can a snake be that has caused a headache for an old Oba-chan? Was the thought in Naruto's mind, and things like catching snakes and catching fishes. He has done countless times while he used to play alone in the forests around the Konoha village. Therefore, Naruto didn't think all that much and quickly went towards Garaga's lair in order to retrieve his reverse scale so that he can learn senjutsu. Seeing Naruto going, Hinata hesitated a little. Then she quickly followed him. "Naruto-kun, wait for me." By the time Kabuto came to his sense, Naruto and Hinata had already walked away from a long distance, so even if he didn't want to, Kabuto had no choice but to go after them. So, after shaking his head helplessly, Kabuto sighed and hurriedly caught up with the two kids. "Hey, you two kids! Don't go ahead so casually. Do you even know how dangerous this place is?" At the same time, he couldn't help but think whether it was a good idea to bring Naruto to the Ryuchi cave. As Kabuto, Naruto, and Hinata left the shrine of the White Snake Sage, 3 graceful female figures with white robes appeared by the White Snake Sage's side. These 3 beauties are Tagori-heim, Tagitsu-heim, and Ichikishima-heim, the 3 priestesses of the White Snake Sage. Tagori-heim looked at the back of 3 people as they disappeared, and couldn't help but ask White Snake Sage, "Why did you stop us from testing the 3 of them outside the Ryuchi cave?" White Snake Sage stared at Naruto's back and laughed. "Heh, heh, heh. Just some reasons. Although I never expected that this child will come here of all places." Tagitsu-heim also looked at Naruto's back and asked curiously, "Is there anything special about this child?" "Maybe," replied White Snake Sage. Ichikishima-heim was a little puzzled. If that child is really special, then was it a good idea to let him go after Garaga? No matter how special, he is still a child at this time. With Garaga's temper, he will definitely eat up that child. White Snake Sage just chuckled and said nothing. But at the same time, she was thinking to herself, if that child is really Asura's reincarnation, then perhaps the test will end in a different manner. Well, I just have to wait and see.